Chapter 74 of A Selection from the Discourses of Epictetus with the Enchiridion. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Davy Lyon. A Selection from the Discourses of Epictetus with the Enchiridion by Epictetus. Translated by George Long, 1800 to 1879. Chapter 74. The Enchiridion, Parts 31 through 40. 31. As to piety towards the gods, you must know that this is the chief thing, to have right opinions about them, to think that they exist, and that they administer the all well and justly. And you must fix yourself in this principle, duty, to obey them, and to yield to them in everything which happens, and voluntarily to follow it as being accomplished by the wisest intelligence. For if you do so, you will never either blame the gods, nor will you accuse them of neglecting you. And it is not possible for this to be done in any other way than by withdrawing from the things which are not in our power, and by placing the good and the evil only in those things which are in our power. For if you think that any of the things which are not in our power is good or bad, it is absolutely necessary that, when you do not obtain what you wish, and when you fall into those things which you do not wish, you will find fault and hate those who are the cause of them. For every animal is formed by nature to this, to fly from and to turn from the things which appear harmful, and the things which are the cause of the harm, but to follow and admire the things which are useful and the causes of the useful. It is impossible, then, for a person who thinks that he is harmed to be delighted with that which he thinks to be the cause of the harm, as it is also impossible to be pleased with the harm itself. For this reason also a father is reviled by his son when he gives no part to his son of the things which are considered to be good. And it was this which made Polynices and Eteocles enemies, the opinion that royal power was a good. It is for this reason that the cultivator of the earth reviles the gods, for this reason the sailor does, and the merchant, and for this reason those who lose their wives and their children. For where the useful, your interest is, there also piety is. Consequently, he who takes care to desire as he ought, and to avoid as he ought, at the same time also cares after piety. But to make libations, and to sacrifice, and to offer first fruits according to the custom of our fathers, purely and not meanly, nor carelessly, nor scantily, nor above our ability, is a thing which belongs to all to do. 32. When you have recourse to divination, remember that you do not know how it will turn out, but that you are come to inquire from the diviner. But of what kind it is you know when you come, if indeed you are a philosopher. For if it is any of the things which are not in our power, it is absolutely necessary that it must be neither good nor bad. Do not then bring to the diviner desire or aversion. If you do, you will approach him with fear. But having determined in your mind that everything which shall turn out, result, is indifferent, and does not concern you, and whatever it may be, for it will be in your power to use it well, and no man will hinder this, come then with confidence to the gods as your advisers. And then, when any advice shall have been given, remember whom you have taken as advisers, and whom you will have neglected, if you do not obey them. And go to divination, as Socrates said that you ought, about those matters in which all the inquiry has reference to the result, and in which means are not given either by reason nor by any other art, for knowing the thing which is the subject of the inquiry. Wherefore, when we ought to share a friend's danger, or that of our country, you must not consult the diviner whether you ought to share it. For even if the diviner shall tell you that the signs of the victims are unlucky, it is plain that this is a token of death or mutilation of part of the body, or of exile. But reason prevails that even with these risks, we should share the dangers of our friend and of our country. Therefore attend to the greater diviner, the Pythian god, who ejected from the temple him who did not assist his friend when he was being murdered. 33. Immediately prescribe some character and some form to yourself which you shall observe both when you are alone and when you meet with men. And let silence be the general rule, or let only what is necessary be said, and in few words. And rarely, and when the occasion calls, we shall say something, but about none of the common subjects, not about gladiators, nor horse races, nor about athletes, nor about eating or drinking, which are the usual subjects, and especially not about men, as blaming them or praising them or comparing them. If then you are able, bring over by your conversation the conversation of your associates to that which is proper. But if you should happen to be confined to the company of strangers, be silent. Let not your laughter be much, nor on many occasions, nor excessive. Refuse altogether to take an oath, if it is possible. If it is not, refuse as far as you are able. Avoid banquets which are given by strangers and by ignorant persons. But if ever there is occasion to join in them, let your attention be carefully fixed that you slip not into the manners of the vulgar, the uninstructed. For you must know that if your companion be impure, he also who keeps company with him must become impure, though he should happen to be pure. Apply the things which relate to the body as far as the bare use, as food, drink, clothing, house, and slaves, but exclude everything which is for show or luxury. As to pleasure with women, abstain as far as you can before marriage, but if you do indulge in it, do it in the way which is conformable to custom. Do not, however, be disagreeable to those who indulge in these pleasures, or reprove them. And do not often boast that you do not indulge in them yourself. If a man has reported to you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make any answer to what has been told you, but reply, "The man did not know the rest of my faults, for he would not have mentioned these only." It is not necessary to go to the theaters often, but if there is ever a proper occasion for going, do not show yourself as being a partisan of any man except yourself. That is, desire only that to be done which is done, and for him only to gain the prize who gains the prize, for in this way you will meet with no hindrance. But abstain entirely from shouts and laughter at any thing or person, or violent emotions. And when you are come away, do not talk much about what has passed on the stage, except about that which may lead to your own improvement. For it is plain, if you do talk much, that you admired the spectacle more than you ought. Do not go to the hearing of certain persons' recitations, nor visit them readily. But if you do attend, observe gravity and sedateness, and also avoid making yourself disagreeable. When you are going to meet with any person, and particularly one of those who are considered to be in a superior condition, place before yourself what Socrates or Zeno would have done in such circumstances, and you will have no difficulty in making a proper use of the occasion. When you are going to any of those who are in great power, place before yourself that you will not find the man at home, that you will be excluded, that the door will not be opened to you, that the man will not care about you. And if with all this it is your duty to visit him, bear what happens, and never say to yourself that it was not worth the trouble. For this is silly, and marks the character of a man who is offended by externals. In company, take care not to speak much and excessively about your own acts or dangers, for as it is pleasant to you to make mention of your own dangers, it is not so pleasant to others to hear what has happened to you. Take care also not to provoke laughter, for this is a slippery way towards vulgar habits, and is also adapted to diminish the respect of your neighbors. It is a dangerous habit also to approach obscene talk. When, then, anything of this kind happens, if there is a good opportunity, rebuke the man who has proceeded to this talk, But if there is not an opportunity, by your silence at least, and blushing and expression of dissatisfaction by your countenance, show plainly that you are displeased at such talk. 34. If you have received the impression of any pleasure, guard yourself against being carried away by it, but let the thing wait for you, and allow yourself a certain delay on your own part. Then think of both times, of the time when you will enjoy the pleasure, and of the time after the enjoyment of the pleasure, when you will repent and will reproach yourself. And set against these things how you will rejoice, if you have abstained from the pleasure, and how you will commend yourself. But if it seem to you seasonable to undertake, do the thing, take care that the charm of it, and the pleasure, and the attraction of it shall not conquer you. But set on the other side the consideration how much better it is to be conscious that you have gained this victory. 35. When you have decided that a thing ought to be done, and are doing it, never avoid being seen doing it, though the many shall form an unfavorable opinion about it. For if it is not right to do it, avoid doing the thing. But if it is right, why are you afraid of those who shall find fault wrongly? 36. As the proposition "it is either day or it is night" is of great importance for the disjunctive argument, but for the conjunctive is of no value, so in a symposium, entertainment, to select the larger share is of great value for the body, but for the maintenance of the social feeling is worth nothing. When then you are eating with another, remember to look not only to the value for the body of the thing set before you, but also to the value of the behavior towards the host, which ought to be observed. 37. If you have assumed a character above your strength, you have both acted in this manner in an unbecoming way, and you have neglected that which you might have fulfilled. 38. In walking about, as you take care not to step on a nail or to sprain your foot, so take care not to damage your own ruling faculty. And if we observe this rule in every act, we shall undertake this act with more security. 39. The measure of possession, property, is to every man the body, as the foot is of the shoe. If then you stand on this rule, the demands of the body, you will maintain the measure. But if you pass beyond it, you must then, of necessity, be hurried as it were down a precipice. As also in the matter of the shoe, if you go beyond the necessities of the foot, the shoe is gilded, then of a purple color, then embroidered, for there is no limit to that which has once passed the true measure. 40. Women forthwith from the age of 14 are called by the men mistresses. Therefore, since they see that there is nothing else that they can obtain, but only the power of lying with men, they begin to decorate themselves, and to place all their hopes in this. It is worth our while, then, to take care that they may know that they are valued by men for nothing else than appearing, being, decent and modest and discreet. End of chapter 74. Chapter 75 of A Selection from the Discourses of Epictetus with the Enchiridion. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Davy Lyon. A Selection from the Discourses of Epictetus with the Enchiridion by Epictetus. Translated by George Long, 1800 to 1879. Chapter 75. The Enchiridion, parts 41 through 52. 41. It is a mark of a mean capacity to spend much time on the things which concern the body, such as much exercise, much eating, much drinking, much easing of the body, much copulation. But these things should be done as subordinate things, and let all your care be directed to the mind. 42. When any person treats you ill or speaks ill of you, remember that he does this or says this because he thinks that it is his duty. It is not possible then for him to follow that which seems right to you, but that which seems right to himself. Accordingly, if he is wrong in his opinion, he is the person who is hurt, for he is the person who has been deceived. For if a man shall suppose the true conjunction to be false, it is not the conjunction which is hindered, but the man who has been deceived about it. If you proceed then from these opinions, you will be mild in temper to him who reviles you, for say on each occasion, it seemed so to him. 43. Everything has two handles, the one by which it may be borne, the other by which it may not. If your brother acts unjustly, do not lay hold of the act by that handle wherein he acts unjustly, for this is the handle which cannot be borne. But lay hold of the other, that he is your brother, that he was nurtured with you, and you will lay hold of the thing by that handle by which it can be borne. 44. These reasonings do not cohere. I am richer than you, therefore I am better than you. I am more eloquent than you, therefore I am better than you. On the contrary, these rather cohere. I am richer than you, therefore my possessions are greater than yours. I am more eloquent than you, therefore my speech is superior to yours. But you are neither possession nor speech. 45. Does a man bathe quickly, early? Do not say that he bathes badly, but that he bathes quickly. Does a man drink much wine? Do not say that he does this badly, but say that he drinks much. For before you shall have determined the opinion, how do you know whether he is acting wrong? Thus it will not happen to you to comprehend some appearances which are capable of being comprehended, but to assent to others. 46. On no occasion call yourself a philosopher, and do not speak much among the uninstructed about theorems, philosophical rules, precepts, but do that which follows from them. For example, at a banquet do not say how a man ought to eat, but eat as you ought to eat. For remember that in this way Socrates also altogether avoided ostentation. Persons used to come to him and ask to be recommended by him to philosophers, and he used to take them to philosophers, so easily did he submit to being overlooked. Accordingly, if any conversation should arise among uninstructed persons about any theorem, generally be silent. For there is great danger that you will immediately vomit up what you have not digested. And when a man shall say to you that you know nothing, and you are not vexed, then be sure that you have begun the work of philosophy. For even sheep do not vomit up their grass and show to the shepherds how much they have eaten, but when they have internally digested the pasture, they produce externally wool and milk. Do you also show not your theorems to the uninstructed, but show the acts which come from their digestion. 47. When at a small cost you are supplied with everything for the body, do not be proud of this, nor if you drink water say on every occasion, I drink water. But consider first how much more frugal the poor are than we, and how much more enduring of labor. And if you ever wish to exercise yourself in labor and endurance, do it for yourself and not for others. Do not embrace statues, but if you are ever very thirsty, take a draught of cold water and spit it out, and tell no man. 48. The condition and characteristic of an uninstructed person is this: he never expects from himself profit, advantage, nor harm, but from externals. The condition and characteristic of a philosopher is this: he expects all advantage and all harm from himself. The signs, marks, of one who is making progress are these: he censures no man, he praises no man, he blames no man, he accuses no man, he says nothing about himself as if he were somebody or knew something. When he is impeded at all or hindered, he blames himself. If a man praises him, he ridicules the praiser to himself. If a man censures him, he makes no defense. He goes about like weak persons, being careful not to move any of the things which are placed before they are firmly fixed. He removes all desire from himself, and he transfers aversion to those things only of the things within our power which are contrary to nature. He employs a moderate movement towards everything. Whether he is considered foolish or ignorant, he cares not. And in a word, he watches himself as if he were an enemy and lying in ambush. 49. When a man is proud because he can understand and explain the writings of Chrysippus, say to yourself, if Chrysippus had not written obscurely, this man would have had nothing to be proud of. But what is it that I wish? To understand nature and to follow it. I inquire, therefore, who is the interpreter, and when I have heard that it is Chrysippus, I come to him, the interpreter. But I do not understand what is written, and therefore I seek the interpreter, and so far there is yet nothing to be proud of. But when I shall have found the interpreter, the thing that remains is to use the precepts, the lessons. This itself is the only thing to be proud of. But if I shall admire the exposition, what else have I been made unless a grammarian instead of a philosopher, except in one thing, that I am explaining Chrysippus instead of Homer? When then any man says to me, read Chrysippus to me, I rather blush when I cannot show my acts like to and consistent with his words. 50. Whatever things, rules, are proposed to you for the conduct of life, abide by them as if they were laws, as if you would be guilty of impiety if you transgressed any of them. And whatever any man shall say about you, do not attend to it, for this is no affair of yours. How long will you then still defer thinking yourself worthy of the best things, and in no matter transgressing the distinctive reason? Have you accepted the theorems, rules, which it was your duty to agree to, and have you agreed to them? What teacher then do you still expect that you defer to him the correction of yourself? You are no longer a youth, but already a full-grown man. If then you are negligent and slothful, and are continually making procrastination after procrastination, and proposal, intention after proposal, and fixing day after day, after which you will attend to yourself, you will not know that you are not making improvement, but you will continue ignorant, uninstructed, both while you live and till you die. Immediately then think it right to live as a full-grown man, and one who is making proficiency, and let everything which appears to you to be the best be to you a law which must not be transgressed. And if anything laborious or pleasant or glorious or inglorious be presented to you, remember that now is the contest, now are the Olympic Games, and they cannot be deferred. And that it depends on one defeat and one giving way, that progress is either lost or maintained. Socrates in this way became perfect, in all things improving himself, attending to nothing except to reason. But you, though you are not yet a Socrates, ought to live as one who wishes to be a Socrates. 51. The first and most necessary part in philosophy is the use of theorems, precepts. For instance, that we must not lie. The second part is that of demonstrations. For instance, how is it proved that we ought not to lie? The third is that which is confirmatory of these two, and explanatory. For example, how is this a demonstration? For what is demonstration? What is consequence? What is contradiction? What is truth? What is falsehood? The third part, topic, is necessary on account of the second, and the second on account of the first. But the most necessary, and that on which we ought to rest, is the first. But we do the contrary, for we spend our time on the third topic, and all our earnestness is about it. But we entirely neglect the first. Therefore we lie, but the demonstration that we ought not to lie we have ready to hand. 52. In every thing, circumstance, we should hold these maxims ready to hand. Lead me, O Zeus, and thou, O Destiny, the way that I am bid by you to go. To follow I am ready. If I choose not, I make myself a wretch, and still must follow. But whoso nobly yields unto necessity, we hold him wise and skilled in things divine. And the third also. O Crito, if so it pleases the gods, so let it be. Anytus and Meletus are able indeed to kill me, but they cannot harm me. End of chapter 75. End of a selection from the Discourses of Epictetus with the Enchiridion by Epictetus, translated by George Long, 1800 to 1879.